at 12:30.
Oh, sorry.
So it gives you 10 minutes. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Earful of Dirt Lineouts. I'm your host. Maybe someone else hosts. I don't know, but we'll find out. You can find me at the Strobro on Twitter. And we've got a guest. I'm going to try and sort of get if you've noticed on Twitter, I have legends. I want to talk to legends of the game. And we've got a legend of the game today. He retired once. Someone threw cast their line and the lure floated in the river. And, he just bit it because he was ready to go. Peter, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. Navigating these crazy times without rugby. Here I am. I got back into it for 2 weeks, and then they pulled the carpet out from under me. Crazy.
It's man. We were talking about it before the beginning of the show, and it's just how much different it is, I guess, now than even before the season started. Things have changed in this world in 6 weeks completely.
Right.
So for you, I mean, you're project manager in construction, right? So
right.
You're done for a while.
Yeah. So yeah, things are shut down for me. So I flip homes, and run a little construction crew. So, I mean, for me, buying something on the market right now has to be, realistically a long time from now before I'm comfortable to make that type of decision. So yeah, man, I'm sitting on my hands, and it would have been nice to have rugby to go through this with and, have that going on. But yeah, for me, I mean, both my, passions and both my streams of income have basically been shut down for the foreseeable future. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I would say a stream of income for me is also shut down. For the foreseeable future. I was like, crap.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's the reality for a lot of Americans right now.
I mean, I would say I'm lucky in that my partner, my longtime girlfriend, she works for the government, so she's all right. And financially, I'm in grad school, I'm in law school at ASU, so things are okay. And I was, very good with my finances when I served in the Army. So I'm not like a lot of people where out there, people talk about how most Americans can't afford a $500 emergency. Right. And I guess in our house, we talk about it. It wasn't a mistake unless it was $1,000. I mean, because the reality is I guess when it comes to finances, the number 1,000 really just starts for normal people, right?
Right.
Just change everything. The moment you have to spend $1,000 on something, whether it was you made the wrong turn and you hit somebody, or you lost money in the stock market because you made a bad trade.
Right.
I used to do some day trading when I was this was stupid. I gotta tell you, so I was on the division staff at Fort Bliss, and at the same time I was on the division staff, I was trying to day trade.
Okay.
When this is the most, try to be a long range planner that's developing brigade level exercises, and then also pay attention to the stock market.
Right.
You will lose money or you'll get fired. One of the two.
Yeah, true. When I was at U of A, I was working at the little information desk at I don't know what it was, the student union, I guess. And I tried to get into it a little bit myself and just realized how over my head I was, and it was well beyond my pay grade at $8 an hour at the information desk at U of
A. Yeah. So where do you want to go? Do we want to start with this season? Do we want to start? Do we want to go backwards, or do we want to go forwards?
Man, I'm up for whatever. I don't know how far back I want to go and let everybody know how old I really am now. But I feel like for the longest time I was the young guy on the rugby field, and now here I am, one of the oldest.
Well, as long as you and Ryan just shave, you'll be all right.
Well, I've been growing it out. It's probably the longest my facial hair has ever been.
It's Ryan is the one guy Ryan Macias, for those that don't pay attention, when he has long hair, he looks like he's straight out of The Princess Bride, right?
Yeah.
Like it's perfect. It's like, oh my gosh. So,
man, I remember Ryan. So obviously he's from Tucson, and I went to school in Tucson, and his older brother was a very good friend of mine. Ryan's a couple of years younger than me, a year or two younger than me, but I got to know Ryan's brother really well. And Ryan wasn't at the U of A at the time, but he was always coming to trainings with us and everything. And it's just so crazy to me that both he and I made it out of Tucson and played on the national team together at different points, and now in the MLR together. It's just so crazy that Tucson produced that, and that I had that relationship.
I mean, you guys, like, for a period of years, right? U of A was this factory of just putting high level rugby players out. I mean, not that has like stopped at all.
Right.
I mean, there's still All Americans coming out of U of A. There's still like national like MLR level players coming out of U of A, because you had the Kyle Rogers down in San Diego.
Yeah.
So like there's a lot of players still like coming through the U of A system, even though the coaches are completely different from
Right.
But
yeah, I mean, I think that right there is testament to Dave Sitton. I mean, I was thinking about it before I was coming on this, and I wasn't sure what we were going to talk about and where it was going to go. But I was like, man, like, so I don't know if you know this or many people know this, but I didn't play rugby until I got to U of A. I'd never even touched a rugby ball.
I did enough research to know that.
Yeah, I'd never even seen a game. I had no idea.
So I would say I touched a ball for a group project when a sophomore year in high school. That's when I got we tried to form a club. Okay. And then so right when we sort of figured it out, and this was 2004. Yeah. We all went off to our spring sports. And then it just disappeared. And to this day, there is no youth club in that area of SoCal. Yeah. So everything else, I would say all of rugby in SoCal, on the youth level is focused towards the beach. So, and we were inland, which kind of sucks. Okay. But yeah.
Where were you? Where'd you grow up?
A place called Laverne, but interestingly, there's Eastern LA County. That's way Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Okay.
The claim to fame of San Dimas is San Dimas High School football rules. Well, they suck. I went to the other school in the school district, Bonita.
Gotcha.
But the colleges, 2 colleges play rugby in the area, and there's some senior clubs, but there's just no youth rugby whatsoever, which is interesting and makes it. But so I was like you, and really didn't know what rugby was until college.
Yeah. Right.
So you get to U of A. Who drags you to what is now Sitton Field and hands you an oversized egg?
Yeah. So I met a guy at the rec center, and he's wearing an Arizona rugby shirt. We started talking, and he asked, if I wanted to play, would I be interested? And it just so happened that the very next day they were having an informational meeting for all the new guys. And that's one thing that U of A did, and I assume still does so well, is that they make it a community that's not, they want everyone to have a place. So there's no cuts, there's no tryouts. I mean, if you want to show up and put in work, they're happy to have you out there. And so, I mean, I was thinking about it, and I was like, if there was a tryout for a rugby team, would I even have shown up? I would have just assumed I didn't have any experience. I wouldn't make it, So the fact that there wasn't any tryout was probably what led me to actually go. And then, I mean, right away I realized it was something I enjoyed and wanted to be a part of. So I put in the work, and I mean, it was probably the best decision I've ever made in my entire life. Put in
the work. Only a freshman All-American. Only a freshman All-American.
Thinking about it, the last 10, 12 years of my life have been dictated by rugby, you know what I mean? And it's been a pretty wild ride. And, I don't think I'd be in Seattle doing what I'm doing right now if it wasn't for rugby. And, who knows where I'd be if had I not found rugby. It's just so crazy. I can't even, it gets kind of scary to think about where I'd be had I not started playing rugby,
Yeah, I gotta say the same in a lot of ways. It's just rugby is this interesting sport where you end up. It becomes a big I guess a lifeline or lifeblood of your life as you go forward, especially if, I mean, like being with the Saracens, you probably saw this for a lot of times. Like you have transitive players that come into the
Right.
club. Like guys will pick up a season and then you'll never see them again, and
Right.
that's sort of the way of it in American rugby. And you would see guys. I played for 2 years with the Scorpions in El Paso, and then 2 years with the Fort Bliss Warriors, which are
Okay.
gone because
Yeah.
Harmony Rugby just it, it just disappears, like Fort Hood I think Fort Hood and Fort Bragg are two really good clubs that have had enough rugby people around them that, like, even though they have numbers issues sometimes, that they're able to hold on at least.
Okay.
And then the Fort Bliss club comes in and comes out, and it's just, it is what it is. But it's just interesting to see who comes in and who comes out. And I saw that here a little bit in Phoenix. I guess I was the transitive person because I broke my collarbone not playing rugby. I was cycling, and I haven't been back to my club since to play or practice. I mean, I've gone out and, supported them in games and just hung out, but I haven't been a club player. And then when you start covering MLR all the time, I'm like, when's fall rugby? Let's do fall rugby because spring is, professional time. But
done. Yeah.
But so you get there under Coach Sitton. What's what was the vibe like then? Because I talked to Adam Mashinsky, one of your pals, who was like, you guys created, with all these U of A players in MLR, you created your own tribal system. Some people are, Seattle fans, and some people are San Diego fans. And it's just kind of interesting to see that, people who have no connection to those cities. It's like Adam, I remember in season 1, he was like, yeah, going up to Seattle.
That's right. He did come to a game. That's right. Yeah. It's cool to look at it and say, look at all the colleges that have, more than one player in the MLR, which isn't many. You know what I mean? Well, maybe now it's a little different that the league's grown, but the first year and second year is, there's not that many college players that make it to the MLR, with so many foreign talent and so many players that come to the U.S. from other countries even before the MLR was around. So to look at U of A and see there's 3 or 4 guys, and it's like, we're not a Cal. We didn't have the program Cal had, or even a St. Mary's or Kutztown or anything like that. So the fact that 3 of us were just in the league because we worked hard and we bought into it, was pretty cool for the school and for us. And, it's our own little brotherhood inside the MLR. So I think that is kind of like, looking back at it, it's one of the coolest things I had to take away from my time at U of A. It's just, we were kind of always felt like the underdogs, and no one really paid all that much attention to us until sevens came around. But now we've got a small handful of us doing well in the MLR. And it's been pretty cool, and hopefully we can continue that tradition coming out of U of A. I know kind of starting to get some more recruits, and Sean Duffy's a little more active in that arena than, say, a Dave Sitton was. So hopefully things keep trending the right way.
So so your freshman year, you make it to Junior All-Americans, right? And then you end up going on tour to Kenya with Junior All-Americans. How, I guess for you, I always ask this question, not when you made it. I think Luke Bryan and a bunch of people say this is like, if you think you made it, you screwed up, right?
Yeah. Right.
Like, it's not a question of when you made it. It's like, when did you think you were? So the question is, when did you know that you were actually a good rugby player?
That's a good question, man. Maybe when I got my first cap with the sevens team, it was like, okay, I'm on a national level here, and like, this is, once after my sophomore year, I kind of saw that's the way my game was probably geared more to. So that was kind of a goal for me. So when I made that, it was kind of like, it was a big pillar in my career for sure, a big step that I always wanted to take and was glad to do it. But yeah, I mean, kind of like what you say, after the first just after the first MLR championship, I changed the background of my phone to Michael Jordan. I mean, I grew up outside of Chicago, so I changed the background of my phone to Michael Jordan holding up 3 fingers after he won his 3rd championship. So, I mean, that was kind of the goal. So it was like you keep moving it, you keep pushing it. I mean, look at USA Rugby, right? You get a ton of guys who make one tour, get one cap with the 15s team, make one tour with the 7s team, and you never hear about them again. And it's probably because they don't just keep pushing. They hit that and you think they've made it and they stop working for it. So for me, it was never where I've gone. It's where I'm going. Our 7s coach at U of A, Chris Crone, who was at St. Mary's, played at U of A, but coached at St. Mary's and then would help us out for 7s. His saying was always, the journey is the reward. So it's always, that the people you meet and the things you accomplish along the journey are so much more valuable than the actual accolades you might receive. But I don't know. I don't know if I ever made it or what did it. But I think that first 7s tournament, I got to play my first one in Hong Kong.
What a great place to debut, man.
Yeah, is the mecca of 7s, right? So it was a pretty special moment to me, and it's I'll never forget it.
I mean, so you did score a try in Hong Kong.
Yeah, it was wild.
Just like, it's not just, hey, I debuted in Hong Kong. It's like, I also scored a try against England, which they're struggling now, but they were good.
I remember they were number 1 in the world that day when we played them going into Hong Kong. And I was starting same position across from Ben Gollings, who, all-time points scorer, most whatever, you name it, he's on top of the 7s list. So it was kind of a surreal moment playing in front of 50,000 people across from Ben Gollings, who's arguably the best player, one of the best top 3 7s players to ever play the game, and ironically was on the field with Matt Turner that day as well, who's become a very good friend of mine now.
Matt Turner, the
polar wild man, places this game takes us.
That's such a long time ago.
I know.
It's really hard to fathom that. So that was 9 years ago. Wow. I feel so old now. The best part is you have a baby face, so I totally thought you were younger forever. I was like, and then I'm like, oh wait, we're like the same age. That's
30.
But so, how did you balance, coming into Chula Vista and going back to U of A and trying to complete your degree?
Yeah, that was certainly tough. I don't know, if it wasn't for my parents, I probably would have maybe not finished school. So I'm glad I did. But yeah, it was tough. My last 2 years or so were fully online. So I was able to work things out with the school and everything to complete my major fully online. And they gave me a very select few options of what I could study if I wanted to go that route. But at that point, to do political science, which obviously is not in-person tests, it's more writing papers. And so I was writing papers. I'd be up at 4:00 in the morning participating in a discussion on my online forum and writing papers while sitting in the hotel lobby, which was the only place I could get Wi-Fi or whatever. So it was an interesting time. And I mean, at first I was going back from Chula Vista to Arizona and doing that drive on a weekly basis, which was certainly an interesting college experience. But I'll meet people now and I'll tell them I went to U of A, and they'll be like, "Oh man, that's so crazy! You probably had such a good time partying and everything." And it was like, man, as soon as I turned 21, as soon as I became like age to go to bars, 2021, I wasn't even there. I was playing rugby full time essentially. So this certainly made for an incredible experience.
I couldn't imagine driving weekly between the center and Tucson.
Yeah. I mean, I'd go out to Chula Vista for a week, come back for a week, train with U of A when I was here, go to school, and drive back out for a week and do it all over again until I guess it would have been 2010 when they made the 7s team full time. Was the first time, and I was a part of the first 10 or so guys, however many it was, that we all went full time professional with that. And I made the move, and then that was when I had to work things out and go full online, and then completed my last 1.5 or 2 years online.
So what was that like? So before going full-time residency, I think I talked to Matt Polar Bear about this, like what it was like just trying to maintain a real job and then flying, to 10 different tournaments. So what was that like when the team wasn't full time? How did you guys sort of stay sane, B, make money so you can feed yourselves, and then also go on tour?
Yeah, for me, the money aspect was a little different because I was still a college student. So, I was incredibly lucky. My parents were able to help me out through that. So, I still had my bills paid and whatnot. But yeah, you basically fly in, you have a week of camp. So Monday would be full on fitness and everything. And then you've got 3 or 4 days to try to make the team, and then team selected. And then the guys who don't make it fly home on that day. And the other guys go travel the world for 3 weeks. So it was pretty hectic lifestyle, man. And it's, you don't know if you're going to be gone for a month, or you don't know if you're going to be gone for 5-6 days. So, certainly made for an exciting, interesting, college career. And then for the guys at U of A, they didn't know if I was going to be available. If I didn't make a tour, I'd come back and play with them. So added a little stress to them as well. But obviously, they wanted me to be out playing for the national team and whatnot. But definitely a tough situation. But it was fun. I made some of the absolute greatest relationships I could ever ask for. Met some incredible people. Traveled to more countries than at the time I even knew existed. The first place I went, as you mentioned earlier, was Kenya. I'd been a kid, grew up in the Midwest and went to school in Arizona, and I'd only been to Mexico and Canada, and then boom, I'm going to Kenya, and then later that year I went to Fiji. So
I'm sure you went to Canada before I did.
What'd you say?
You went to Canada before I did. I'd never been to Canada until August of this year.
Oh, really?
I have to say the Great Lakes area in the summer is
unreal, man. Yeah.
So Kenya, man. So you guys go play the Junior World Trophy. You were first year playing rugby, right? So
yeah.
What was, playing in that tournament like?
That was an experience. Just getting to Kenya, and we land, and at the airport, all the security guards, cops at the airport have AK-47s, and I'm looking around like, oh my God, am I going to make it home? I don't know what's going on. But that was such an unbelievable experience. Just meeting people from different cultures, and as you know, in rugby, you're blessed to meet so many different people from different cultures around the world. But that was my first real immersion into a culture like that, and then playing teams like Namibia, Kenya, the Cayman Islands, and it's just all these guys from different parts of the world. And that was the first time I really learned that you can sense how hard of an upbringing people have had by the way they play rugby. And it's something else, man, to feel that come through a tackle. You know what I mean? They're just different people when you can feel that on a rugby field. And it was that was an experience I will take with me to the day I die. I will never forget going to Kenya and spending 30 days in Kenya as a 19-year-old kid. Super lucky. And I don't know, man. Rewind a year before that trip, I would have told you I'd never be going to Kenya, and much less to play rugby.
I was especially with the Junior World Trophy, I don't think it's been in as many unique places as it was back, way back then, compared to, I guess the second tier of teams is so much stronger as age grade has gotten better, that you don't end up with Kenya, the likes of Kenya, making it through to get to the Junior World Trophy, because you have to be competing in it before you can ever try to host it, really.
Right.
And they were back then, but so you've finished at U of A. Well, before we go there, playing on the sevens team and then also trying to play with U of A sevens, you end up being, what was it, in 2011?
I think so. The CRC.
The tournament? No, you scored most tries at the CRC.
Yeah. Which is pretty wild.
Why didn't you do MVP?
4 games because we got eliminated in the quarterfinal.
Yeah, I remember. I remember the first year of the CRC on TV, and it was in Ohio, and it was on. I think it was on. This was before NCAA lacrosse got huge, and it was on Memorial Day weekend. It was the only thing that was on
Okay.
TV randomly, and I was watching it, and I was like, "This is great." And then they moved the weekend to like June something.
Early June, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, "Oh,
Well, I missed the first one. I had shoulder surgery like 2 weeks before they announced the tournament. So I was bummed. I missed the first CRC, which is when we went to the Final Four. And we lost to Cal eventually in the Final Four the first year. And then we lost the quarterfinal to Central Washington 5-0 on day one. We outscore our opponents 88-0 and go 3-0. And then day two, first game out, we lose 5-0. It was like the ultimate letdown. And then the last year that I played, we lost the final, and that was the game I broke my arm in the second minute or whatever it was. Yeah, what a bummer that was.
Did you break both bones?
No, just one.
Oh man,
Yeah.
At least it wasn't like this.
Oh yeah. It was what a bummer that was, man.
So how much longer did you stay in residence after leaving U of A when you were done?
Not long. So I mean, you could ask my friends and family; they'll probably tell you I've retired from rugby 4 or 5 times. So I left the sevens team, which would have been very beginning 2013, something like that. And I went home, went back to Chicago, and I lived there for a little while, and then I got back. I played summer sevens with Chicago and had a blast. And then I moved out to Seattle, which would have been the end of 2013. And that was when I got in with back then it was Seattle, Puget Sound Beach, which then became, Saracens and whatnot. So I've been playing mostly sevens with them, but I've been playing some 15 seasons, some 15s games here and there. And then I'd gone back to the sevens team one time in 2014, which was Mike Friday's first tournament when we went to Gold Coast. And then I had to have another shoulder surgery. So that put rugby on hold for a while. And then I went back prior to 2016 to train for the Olympics. And then unfortunately missed out on that. And then shortly after that, I heard rumblings about this Major League Rugby thing happening. So they approached me and asked if I would play. And, I said, if it happens.
Before we get to Major League Rugby, there was this game that you played where I'm like, and I remember saying, and I for some reason I thought you played much more during that ARC.
Oh yeah.
And for Mitch, and I was like, there was this game, and you scored a try, and I just remember the way you run. I wouldn't say it's so elegant, but you glide through a defense when you have the ball and you just cut. Did you play hockey as a child?
No, you know what? I always say that's the one sport I never played that I wish I'd played.
Because it sort of felt like you're just skating. Yeah. Like especially during season one when you were playing wing before you had that adventure at scrum half. As like just with the way you were playing in season one, I thought you would get called up again.
Yeah,
like you were like tearing it up, and so you end up playing for Mitchell. This was, I guess, his second year, right? 2017.
Yeah, so when did he come? 2016. Does that sound right?
2016 January, and capped like 80 people during that first ARC.
Yeah. So I had been in when I was down in Chula Vista with the sevens team full time in 2016. He had approached me and wanted me to be a part of the team that played Scotland in that tour, and then played Russia, and they did kind of the tour of California. And I had a really bad high ankle sprain that essentially kept me out of competing for a spot for the Olympics. That was the same time as this was going on. So I went and trained and did my best with the 15s guys, but he just couldn't get me into the lineup with the injury. And then I kept in touch with them, and they kept reaching out to me about things. And then I got the last minute call up for that game against Brazil down in Austin. Then that was the game you were referencing, which was pretty wild.
Hey, scored a try, man. Like
crazy.
At least it wasn't, what was it, in 2016 where we lost that game.
Right. Yeah. And we were lucky to win this one. I think we won 50 something, which is pretty funny, right? Yeah. I scored a try at the last minute. We win 50 something to 10 and we're all, celebrating like we just won the World Series in the last pitch or something. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, it was, the ARC before the MLR, that was the same year, I think, that, 2017 was the same year that the Huns won the D1 championship, and you guys were like, so that was like right as things were starting to shift. Did you? Right. So here's a good one. Did you ever think about playing in pro?
You know what? I totally would have. And I did think about it because I was down in San Diego and Chula Vista when that was all going on. But they wouldn't, because the Olympics were so close, they wouldn't allow any of us to go play. And it would have been easy, right? So San Diego had a team. We could have gone and played. We went and watched all the games, but they just wouldn't release any of us to go play.
It was such a and that one, like, pro was so weird just with the way things rolled out, and it's just and then I talked to some guys about it, and Doug apparently always planned to plug.
Really?
Like all this fight with the union was all BS. It was like he was just like, I'm done. And it was interesting because other teams that are in MLR now had reached out to him to try and, I guess, invest in his single entity league and own teams. And they were like, he was like, no, I'm good. And then he just stopped paying people. And
that's such a strange model, in my opinion, to have a sports league of 5 teams or whatever it was, all owned by one individual, instead of, like, sure, you could argue the MLRs, all the teams are owned more or less by the MLR, but at least you have individuals making decisions for each of those teams. And then, I mean, what's to keep somebody who owns all teams to stack one or whatnot? And it was just such a strange concept, in my opinion. And you'd think he would try to then sell off teams, right? And that would be his exit strategy.
I mean,
get out of it with some change.
I thought that was the whole idea, is like, okay, you create this league, and maybe you keep the 5 teams you have, but you sell operating licenses and franchise those out. And then eventually you sell off the other teams as value, as they gain value and whatnot. And then, he's just like, no, I'm good. I just remember it being on, I remember going, like, it was on AOL, of all places to be broadcast. And
you're right.
Yeah. And I remember going into the field because I was in the Army at the time, and I came back and it was no longer being broadcast on AOL. I guess they were still filming the games. Either they were being broadcast on YouTube, but I mean, I don't remember.
I don't even remember.
I have no idea. And then, the league just shut down and everything went haywire and
everything.
But, I think we're obviously in a better place today than we were.
Most recently, the news came out that the MLR is paying everybody. That there was a huge step in the right direction. And I mean, it's obviously they realized they were, granted, whether they were considering not paying or not, but if they were considering not paying, that they realized how difficult of a time it would be for this league next season to get going. Had you,
I think in general, like, the MLR is in a place because of where salary load is, that I would say affording payroll is not for now is not a crazy thing where you have to do the math and find out, like, how much less you have to pay people, like in the Premiership, where all these clubs are like, it's either take less or take zero. And it's not just to players, it's to everyone. Like, I think it's like Gloucester, Worcester, Saracens, they're like, every single person has to take 25% less. Or no one's getting paid. But that's the reality, right? No games means no game day ticket revenue, no merchandise sales, no burgers sold, no beer sold. Your sponsors aren't going to want to pay. And this is for any sports league, because I'm dealing with it right now with talking to in MLB and like what they're trying to figure out. They're still trying to figure out how to get a 162 game season,
which is crazy, right?
Opening day would have been next week, and this thing is not going to be done. Did you see that Scott Boras tweet? And like, he was like, we would still play 162 games, and it would be the World Series Game 7, if it existed, would be on Christmas Day.
How are you going to play Christmas baseball in half the cities in the league? You know,
I don't know.
Chicago, it might be negative 20 degrees.
So yeah, this is such a crazy time. So
yeah.
Go up to Saracens, play a little bit of 15s, play a little bit of 7s. In fact, you play a lot of 7s. You played 7s this summer.
Yeah.
The WAC 7s champions.
Yeah, that was fun.
So,
I mean, those summer 7s, man, are so much fun. I mean, you pick 5 weekends out of the summer, and you're hanging out with 12 of your buddies playing rugby for a day, and then at the end, you get to go travel to a new city around the country and play a 2-day tournament with your buddies and see so many guys that you've played with around the country at different times. So those 7 summers are something. When I look back at rugby,
I hated 7s.
Well, it's brutal, right? It's an absolute brutal game.
Well, so like you're playing mostly in the Northwest. So like when I was in El Paso, we would we had our own our own tournament called Sun City Sevens. So we would split the clubs up. When I was on the Scorpions, it was just 2, but we would split the clubs up. So the the Scorpions would go into East versus West side, and then the Toads from which don't exist anymore. Talk about clubs just dying. The clubs from the Toads from up in Las Cruces would come down because it's like an hour and a half, and we would play at 9 o'clock at night, and it's still 105 degrees. And that's why I hate 7s. Not because 7s isn't 7s right now, when it's 75 is amazing. So 7s in Washington State in the middle of summer, great time
for sure.
It's a great time. It's fitness and oxygen sucking, but it's not hell on earth.
Have you ever gone out and played midnight 7s in Vegas?
Oh no.
Actually, I played with Tempe when I went there.
Really?
When I was in school, I went out and played.
There was a tournament. We played Chupacabra 7s in I think it's at midnight, so not it's at midnight too, but it's in New Mexico.
Gotcha.
And it was just this is just hell. I would think at least in Vegas, in that respect, if you're going just to play club stuff, because we play, my club plays the Las Vegas Irish in our division in the Arizona Union. So when you go home and away with them, at least you can kind of make a weekend of it,
right?
Because you're just playing one game, and then you can just come back and do whatever. So I've never done midnight 7s. That would be interesting.
It was fun, man. Yeah, I played. Salty we actually had a team that year. We had myself. We had Ty Inosa playing. We had Brett Thompson playing.
And Valu and wow, that's what?
Yeah.
How did you guys not win? That would be stacked.
That was probably the last year that I know of that Tempe made nationals. And unfortunately, I don't remember what I had going on, but I couldn't play at nationals, which was a bummer. We had both Thompson brothers, Ty Inosa, and we had what are their names? Two brothers out of Tempe. We had some good players, man. Tempe has a pretty good little population of some rugby players. I should say.
Remember, was it 2013? We drove our butts to Phoenix to play Tempe in the playoffs. And we lost 75-3.
Oh.
Then 2 years later, when I was on the Bliss team, and I guess we won head-to-head against the Scorpions, but I don't know what the tiebreaker was, but I think they scored more tries during the season, and they ended up going to the playoffs instead of us. And then they lost. It was 120. No, it was 153-7. What?
That might be the worst score I've ever heard of in rugby.
I was like, how does this happen?
How do you score 150 points?
I was
crazy.
It was it was at 75-3. I was like,
You can't score more than that. How do you score more
I
than
was
that?
like,
You know?
in that game, I was like, ref, blow the whistle,
Yeah,
please.
just end it. Yeah,
And
last
then
20
like
minutes. Just
then
end it.
seeing that score, the 2 years later, and I'm like where was the referee? Because once it's like over 100, once it's over 100 points, like, for me, I mean,
Mercy
we're
rule.
talking amateur rugby. We're not talking. No one's getting paid. Nothing.
Right.
It's like, just can we just agree that it to be over and let's go have the social? Like,
Yeah, let's go have a beer.
let's just end this. So, all right. So we get to MLR for you, man. And what was, when you're working in construction, you're flipping homes, you end up, man. So you're playing on the wing, and then the AC happens, scrum half. So the whole season was very interesting for you guys. What was it? The way I talk about it this year, especially with the way last year happened, is like, well, you have to lose to the team twice if you're going to beat them in the knockout.
Both times.
If you're going to beat them in the championship, you have to lose to them twice in the season.
Well, I think that's like the perfect analogy for us for in Seattle. It's like we have the talent, we have the people in positions to win games, but it's like we show up when we need to. You know what I mean? Like when our back's against the wall is when we do our best. The one thing I've always said about this team that's always impressed me the most is the resiliency. And so, when it backs up against the wall, I mean, that first final, we were down by 2 tries to Glendale with 20 minutes left in the game. And they scored 2 real quick tries to go up on us. And I mean, at that point, it'd be pretty easy for a team to, go away and end the season that way. But for us to come back, and we bounced back and scored 2 tries immediately after them. And then went on to win the game. So I don't know. Yeah.
Rocky wants you back, man.
You know what? Had this season not been cut early, I would have said for sure I'm not coming back. But I don't know, man. It gave me that itch again. I thought I was in a good place retiring, and then, to get sucked out of retirement so quick. And
well, I would have believed you if you didn't play summer sevens.
Yeah. Well, so I don't know if I'd played summer sevens if I didn't miss the back half of the season last year, because it was, I didn't want to, end my career like that and, going out on an injury like that. So, and like I said, sevens is so much fun, but, yeah, I don't know if anybody ever believes me when I say I'm retiring anymore.
So, first season gets interesting, lose again, Glendale twice. And you talked about being down 2 tries. I remember, I remember taking my in-laws to this game, not her parents, but my brother-in-law and
Gotcha.
And sister-in-law to this game, like the game. It was their first rugby game ever, and it was inaugural MLR final. And it was just, I remember last year, or especially in season 1, be like, Aaron hates the Seawolves. So I was like, I don't hate anybody. Like, I really don't care. Yeah. And I tell this to everyone, is like, I am literally a neutral. Maybe I like certain people better because I'm friends with them, but I don't really care who wins or loses, especially, with my position. It's like, as long as the league continues to be able and grows and more young men are able to get paid to play rugby, and more, I would say Americans specifically, or people who have made their lives here can get paid to coach, then the project, I am a fan of the project.
Yeah.
And unless I'm in a city with a team, which I'm not, then I'm not really going to get that tribal. Right. Although I will say there is a Utah jersey right there with a Seawolves scarf.
Okay. All right.
On it. And Rucky, I have a hat somewhere from the Seawolves too. Carly sent up, and then Rucky sent me a mini Rucky, which is he's downstairs hanging out with Wally of the Wallabies and Rookie Eagle.
Okay.
Kind of weird.
Yeah, all of them.
We have, so like we got all the hunya when it comes to rugby up in this house. But so, and then last year you guys kind of do it again, but you get knocked out, break your nose. What was, like, you had a pretty good start to the season.
Yeah, I mean, it was solid for sure. I feel like that San Diego game that ended my season was the best I'd played. So I was kind of starting to feel myself again and, really be able to make a difference on the field. And then bam, it was done. So it was super frustrating. Um, but yeah, I mean, as a team, we were doing all right. I mean, last year was kind of crazy, right? NOLA was out to a huge lead to start the season, and then they don't make playoffs. And then obviously everyone thought after that it was San Diego's thing, and Toronto's obviously always going to be solid as long as they're the only team up in Canada. So it's just especially with only a 2-game playoff system, and now it's 3. But with a 2-game playoff system, I mean, it's just whoever peaks at the right time. You know what I mean? Like just like the NFL, that's why you have wild card teams that have won championships before. And so for us, it's just when our back's up against the wall and it's lose or go home is when we tend to play our best rugby. So fortunate in that, but it certainly makes the rest of the season a little bit stressful. Like, I mean, even this year, starting out the season one, and we were 1-4 when the season, unfortunately ended. But I don't think there was a soul in our locker room that thought there would be. We thought we would be in we would be, same place. We'd be in the playoffs again, and we'd be taking the second seed in the West because reality was San Diego was going to be too tough to catch at 5-0. But there's no doubt in our camp that we weren't going to be that second seed and having a home playoff game.
I think the biggest, and you can talk about this, consistency of system. And people have, I don't think, what was it? Ben Darwin, he's an analyst. He does a lot of rugby league stuff. He does a lot of rugby union stuff. I think the consistency matrix, and he looks at teams and how consistent their lineup is and how well that feeds into winning.
Okay.
And he throws out some different things when Super Rugby's on, and you kind of like look at the metrics, and I was like, this is interesting. And one of the things that, and then I talked to another friend of mine, and he talks about the spine. And if you look at the spine of your team in season 1, you had a spine highly experienced, and in some cases, most of those players, like Phil and what's his name? How do I not? Raimondo Barquil.
Oh yeah, I had a feeling that's who you're referencing.
Raimondo Barquil. And like you have these guys who've played together for years, and then
right.
You have a very talented number 8 in Reichert, and then you have Shalom, and you have Matt Turner. So you have this very talented spine that can get the team through a lot of stuff if you got a lot of rookies, but you didn't have a lot of rookies either.
Right.
Like you had a bunch of guys like this.
I think we've been the oldest team.
Yeah. It was like, and you had all the Seattle guys you had played for years, and then you had a few other non-Seattle guys thrown in. But in addition to the Canadians who had also played with or against each other for years.
Right.
So, but I would say, like, for you still went with the team places. I mean, we hung out at the final. Like, what was you were telling me you were trying to make the team for the final, right?
Oh, right.
You were probably like, Richie, I'm ready.
Yeah, exactly. I was trying. So I got cleared officially with 2 games left in the regular season. And I mean, I was, I mean, at that point I hadn't been able to do anything because they wouldn't let me get my heart rate up, until my headaches went away. So, to be fair, I probably wasn't fit. But I was certainly trying. And it came down to the strength and conditioning coach not wanting to put me on the field. And then our playoff game against Toronto, is when Matt Turner had his baby. And so he had to pull out of the lineup last minute. And so I was standing by my cell phone hoping to get see Richie's name pop up on my phone. But unfortunately it didn't happen for me. So yeah, I mean, I was certainly wanting to do it. I mean, no athlete wants to go out and end their career, or even a season on an injury. So at that point I wasn't sure if it would end my career or not. So I definitely wanted to get back, but it wasn't in the cards for me.
Well, then we get into the WAC, right? So you guys end up, I mean, talk about a tournament that is as ruthless as it can be, in the same sense that probably the last format of Rugby World Cup 7 was. And you guys go to club nationals and you just put a blitz on it. So
Yeah.
what was, what was all that like? I mean, I remember you see, I was like, oh, there's Tibbs playing again. Maybe we can convince him to come back.
It wasn't too hard. I mean, you look at the team we had is unreal. I mean, look how many caps we have on the Sevens World Series, how many national championships that team has. I mean, you got Matt Turner, Shalom. Well, Shalom wasn't playing, but he was coaching. You got Mike Pellifow, who's been, a staple of US Sevens for 10 years now. Myself, Eric Duchel, who's got sevens and 15s caps. So, I mean, we had some absolute athletes and rugby players in that team. So it was more of just, when you get guys that and they're, older and they've had some success, it's tough to really get them to buy in. But I think that's what we did such a good job of this summer, was kind of, shut your mouth and work hard. This isn't going to be easy. Winning a sevens tournament is never easy. It's a brutal task. And so it was, shut your mouth, work harder type atmosphere, which is, probably unique to what we've had in Seattle Sevens in the past, which is, we had a run where we won 3 national championships in a row. And then I think it was 2 or 3 years past where we had lost a final, we lost a semifinal. And so we hadn't won a championship. And unfortunately, we hadn't won one for the WAC yet, which they treat us so well here in Seattle that we certainly wanted to get that done for them. So this year it was kind of like, all right, it's put up or shut up for the WAC, let's get it done. And we had some guys really, answer the call. And I look at Mike Pellifow myself, and he was the most impressive to me this summer. He was, he's been such a phenomenal rugby player for, I've known him for 12 years now. And I think he's been one of the best rugby players I've known over that 12 years. And for him to come in and just really, know his role and do what he does best was awesome to see. So he impressed me a ton this summer. Then we had 2 young kids up here, both play at AIC, Tommy Clark and Louis, blanking on Louis' last name.
Tommy Clark's a player.
Yeah, I know. If you haven't voted for Player of the Year, vote for him. But both of them were, a great injection of youth into our team, and pushed everybody just a little bit harder. So it was fun to see. We've been so old; we're the oldest team everywhere we go now. So it's nice to see those young guys come in, and it's it makes it worth your while. And when when you look back on your time with this, you look at those guys and see what you were able to help them achieve in the slightest way that we've been able to help them. And you kind of pass the torch, and now it's their turn to play in the MLR, play college All-Americans, maybe go to a national team, whatever it is. So it's kind of fun being on this side. For so long I felt I was on the other side, learning from people and everything. So at this point now I'm finally able to pass what I've learned and help guys achieve the next step.
So then we get to February, and I see this post on. No, Carly texted me. She's like, "Pay attention to like our social or something." Like, I was like, "Okay, whatever."
Hang on one sec. I gotta plug my computer in 1 sec.
Oh, got one of those, ladies and gentlemen. He's running out of juice. Any questions for Tibbs for the audience? Please type them in. We will try to answer as best we can. But hope you guys have enjoyed it. I've enjoyed this one personally because Tibbs is so great.
All right, good.
But so I get a text message from Carly, and she's like, "Hey, watch our social. There's a big announcement coming." And I'm like, "What?"
You and I had talked the day I agreed to come back, and I was almost gonna tell you, but I was like, I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say it.
I was like, "What the heck?" I was like, "Oh, where's this dude out?" Like, what the heck? Oh,
I think everybody had that same reaction.
So what? So who was the person that got you to come back?
Probably Matt Turner. He's been bugging me ever since before preseason, texting me weekly about it, calling me about it. And Shane Skinner's become a good friend of mine as well. And so he really wanted me to come back. And, obviously the team had some incredible, just incredibly unlucky with some injuries they had preseason. I think of the new signings they had, all but one was injured at one point to start the season. So obviously straining on any team. And so it's kind of a combination of the guys wanting me to come back and then that happening. And, still, I don't feel like I have unfinished business with rugby, but the way things ended for me last season certainly wasn't the way I wanted things to end. So kind of a combination of the guys nonstop bugging me and, the season not going well for the guys out the gate. And then, some personal feelings about how I ended my season last year. So here we are.
So now we get into the season and play right away.
Yeah.
What is obviously it's like, I'm not going to do this unless I'm going to play. But for you, like, how did you? I mean, most guys. I mean, you were part of this club before, but how do you approach coming in to set the tone for yourself to just, I guess, earn it and make it happen?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good question. Like, so I knew coming in, like, I had to take this serious. Like, it was, this is these guys' livelihood. This is how they pay their bills. This is, as serious as it gets for these guys. And so when I originally came back, I went to a couple trainings, and it was literally just to help out, give them an extra number in training, and just kind of run around so they could run whatever they needed to run and have a proper, scout team offense or defense, whatever they're needed. And I understand the seriousness of the situation. So I came in and, as professionally as I could in meetings and everything, and then on the field playing as well as I could. And then they saw that I was still training well, could still compete. And then the Wednesday before the New England game, I get a call from Phil, and he says, hey, so you actually want to play? Like, would you be up for it? And I was like, yeah, I guess. So just let me know so I can let my mom know, because she's going to have a heart attack if I don't tell her. And so he's like, all right, well, are you comfortable on the wing this weekend? And I was like, yeah, of course. Like, that's, in 15 is the position I've probably played the most in at least the second half of my career. And then he's like, all right, well, you're going to be covered for scrum half as well. And I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. And then he's like, well, that means you have to play all 80 minutes. And I was like, whoa, for both of these things. But I mean, I've always wanted to play all 80 minutes. I've never wanted to come in late or end the game early. So, I was happy to do it. And, thankfully I was in decent enough shape that I was able to get by game one.
Oh, yeah. Decent enough shape, he says. Just trying to get by. But this is so in 2 games, you did pretty well for yourself in your first game back against New England. You find yourself in the right spot to take the ball in. On one of those, you score a try.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's 80 minutes and a score. First game back after, not playing a lot, because I'm guessing you didn't play a lot with the Saracens.
No, yeah, don't think I'd touched a rugby ball since sevens ended over the summer. So I mean, at that point I was done, like that was honestly thought I was done. So, I mean, I was keeping myself in shape, certainly not the regimen the guys were on, but playing a little pickup basketball, still getting into the gym and whatnot. So it wasn't a complete shock to the body, but not that it wasn't.
And not the same game, but your second game, you play 48 minutes, carve it up, 5 carries, 81 meters, a tackle break, an offload, so not too bad for, some old broke joint.
It was a shame. So I don't know, somehow I fell and my back started spasming immediately, which is why I eventually came out of the game. But it was a shame because I felt like I was like, all right, I hit my stride. I'm feeling good. I'm getting comfortable back on the field. And then it was boom, my back tightened up. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I never like to come out early, but when I was coming out, I was super excited. So we have the 2 brothers this season, CT and Sully.
Yeah.
And so CT had played monsters, absolute monsters. Yeah. And so CT had played and then got injured in the New England game. So that gave an opportunity to his brother Sully to play. So I knew me coming off meant Sully was going to get an opportunity. And CT played out of his mind in the 2 or 3 games he played in, and who knows, Sully could be even better. So it was super exciting for me that knowing these guys are getting an opportunity. Because I came here to Seattle to the very first Rebby rugby camp, and those guys I think were in high school, and they were high school football recruits, and both of them went and played college football. And so I knew these guys way 10, 15 years ago, whenever it was when I met them. And then it's kind of come full circle now that, we're sharing the same jersey. And super excited for the opportunity these guys have, because they are absolute monsters.
I was like, I wasn't sure how they didn't get picked up last year by anyone. Yeah. I was like, because they were talk about, I would say, not diamonds high, like in the rough, just sort of because they hadn't played rugby, because they both had just left college football, that probably no one took a chance on them. And of course, things happen for a reason, and, they end up getting pulled into the Seawolves. But if there are so many guys like them in this country, right? Guys who were All-Americans and went and, there's a kid at Washington State who's a high school All-American, and he's a freshman this year and he's a defensive end. Okay. So is this guy going to, and I tell some of the coaches like who to track, because like these kids, if they don't make it to the NFL, they are like the best athletes that play rugby, like that played rugby in this country in their age grade. You need to get them, because they've just had 3 or 4 years of NCAA football strength and conditioning, and they will just be monsters. We want to bring all those guys back, right? Because rugby, outside of places like Cal, U of A, Lindenwood, Life, like the top 8 programs, they don't get that same attention that an NCAA team gets. Even these like none of these rugby players are getting the same attention as their NCAA counterparts, but they're getting something, right? Yeah. Like you look at U of A, what they do in strength and conditioning now versus what they did in strength and conditioning, 10 years ago is a little bit different. Right.
It's getting more, quote unquote professionalizing. That's not the best term to use with college sports, but just becoming a more, look at a true NCAA sport, it's closing that gap, and you look at a school like U of A. When I went there, or just slightly before I got there, they trained in Esteban Park, which is, not in the best part of town, not the best place to be playing games. And then we got onto an actual school-owned facility, and, now they have their own field on campus right next to the rec center, which is huge, right? Because no college kid's going to come to a game if they have to get a cab or an Uber, 15 minutes away. So I can go work out and then go watch a rugby game. So things are certainly progressing. But yeah, being able to take advantage of those athletes, just like CT and Sully when those guys got out of college, and fair play, they took advantage of a free education, which obviously they should never pass up. But when they do get out of it, to come back to rugby is huge for the game, because in a year's training with the Seawolves, not even, look what they've been able to accomplish just based off pure athleticism.
Yeah. So Richard Lehman asks, how do you think the team was gelling with the new coach in this? And I try to explain this to people, that the Seawolves basically in a span of 2 years had 5 coaches and 3 different S&C coaches. Right. So how do you gel with the newest one is kind of difficult, because you've had so many. Right. That you guys accomplished a lot, not on your own, but in a way, it was in spite of the situation.
Yeah, well, that was kind of it. Like the first year, right? We had a coach come in, couldn't get a visa, went through all that, and so they, kind of like what I mentioned before, we're a resilient group, and so like the more that doesn't go our way, kind of you bind together even tighter, right? Like in the face of adversity, what do you do? And so, you know, we only had one thing. Well, you know, we had a training very early on that went super late. And so first year we were training 7 to 10 p.m. It was brutal. We had meetings at 7, get out of there at 9:30, 10, something like that. And we had a training that was going late, and guys just weren't taking it serious. And we you know, called a huddle, and we just unloaded on each other. And it was like, look, what are we doing out here? This is before we played any games. And it's like, what are we trying to get out of this experience together? Like most of the guys we're working at this point on the team full time have to be up at 6 o'clock in the morning. It's 10 o'clock at night right now. Like, we don't need to be out here doing this unless we're going to do it right. And then I think that just kind of set the tone for that first season, and credit to the group of guys we have. We've been able to carry it over. But going back to Keys and how we've been gelling with Keys is he's such a different type of coach than we've had. So first year it was Phil Mack, you know, he was our coach. And then we had some contracted coaches brought in from Atavis, which were great. But it was mostly, you know, Phil was making calls at the end of the day. So he's one of the boys. Like, I've played against Phil for 10 years. So I've known him for a long time, and he's more of a peer of mine than, you know, an elder. So it made for a very interesting dynamic, but we were very professional about it. And I think it made us closer. But then Keys comes in, and very different than Richie is Keys is a very, no BS. This is how we're doing it. A much kind of stricter type of coach, where Richie's very easygoing and, you know, kind of lets you sort things out on your own. Whereas Keys is very much the opposite. But I know the guys had absolute respect for Keys, and I like the way things were going. And to be honest, I think we need a little bit more of that structure in our coaching, because we are such an easygoing group of guys that we have, you know, one person at the front of the ship steering us in the right direction, I think is what we needed. Obviously, we weren't quite putting it together on the field at this point, but, you know, I did feel good about things, and I think that we were turning the ship around. And, yeah, I really like Keys. I know the boys respect him a ton, and I think he was probably the right fit for us at the moment. It's just a shame that we're not getting to see, you know, this picture get painted and seeing what, you know, the final product would have looked like.
I mean, it's not like for you guys, it's not like you weren't out of the four. Well, one of the games you guys were out. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But like the other 3 games, they were competitive, and if you don't give up a penalty here, or make a kick here, then you're looking at, you know, a 2-3 record, or a 3-2 record, or even a 4-1 record. So you weren't playing awful, except in really one game. And if you analyze what you did, there were ways to make that respectable, if not, you know, just the way things were working in that game, that it, you know, not to say that you could, you know, horseshoes and hand grenades, you wouldn't have been, the Seawolves wouldn't have been 5-0.
Right.
But things were close enough that, you know, 1-4 with a coin flip isn't the record. It could be 3-2 or 4-1. You know?
Yeah. And I mean, there was no doubt in our locker room that we weren't going to be around at the end of the season. You know, look at that Utah game. We defend. What does the game go? 89 minutes, I think it went.
Yeah.
And you know,
don't commit penalties inside the 5 meter.
That's a conversation off air, but I mean, unbelievable, you know, grit and determination from the guys who defend, you know, 10 minutes inside their own 22, and, you know, obviously some penalty issues and whatnot. But if that doesn't show you heart, man, that's unbelievable to see what those guys are doing. And from both teams. I mean, Utah could have gone and kicked and taken the tie easy. They had probably 3 or 4 chances, you know, a very makeable kick. And for them to go for which is what people want, right? They want to see the play for a win. American sports don't end in ties. You know what I mean? America doesn't want to see that. So credit to them for doing it. But, I mean, seeing those boys work so hard for 10 extra minutes, whatever it was pretty unreal. You know, when you're part of a group like that, that's not, you know, not going to throw in the towel when times get tough. It's, you know, it makes it so much easier to show up for training. It's so much easier to put your neck on the line, you know. And, you know, going out on a rugby field isn't the sanest thing in the world. You know, it's a pretty scary thing at times. You know, there's some real consequences that can happen. So if you know you've got guys behind you willing to do the same thing for you, it makes it so much easier. So that performance was so inspiring, I guess, to watch that last 10 minutes from the sideline. It was like, yeah, okay, this is the type of people I want to be around. These are the type of people that I'll, do the same thing for. So,
I mean, that, like, take away the penalties that kept that thing going, the defense in that 10 minutes, in like inside 10 meters before you get to the goal line, it was very good. But what did you think? What did you think of, like, did you see John Cullen? Like, because I saw it on television. It's like, he's like, we're not kicking.
I saw them instantly start pointing to the sideline. So at first, when they called the first penalty, I was like, oh man, a tie? Like, this game is going to end in a tie? And then I saw them point to the sideline. I was like, all right, this is interesting. I mean, I like that move. I mean, if we were on, if things were reversed, I'd hope we would kick for a line out and not tie. And especially in the reality, it's only one extra point. Had we tied instead of losing with a bonus point try and losing a close enough game. So we were getting 2 bonus points out of that, and it was going to happen either way for either team. Yeah. So it's only an extra point, whereas if you gamble and go for the win, you get a 5-point win. So I don't know. I love John. So John and I lived together for a year or so. So it's always fun when he comes up. We caught up after the game and everything. But, I mean, I like that move, to be honest.
Yeah. So, well, I don't have any other questions. But, hey, Peter, thanks for coming by.
Yeah, man. I'm glad we can finally do it.
And hopefully you play in 2021.
Hopefully my mom's not watching.
Well,
you never know, man. I'm not saying no. I'm not saying yes at this point, but I'll tell you, this point last year, or let's say this point a month ago, is a lot better chance of me saying yes than it was a month ago. So.
Well, I wore Matt Turner out the other week because I didn't tell him this when I ran my marathon because it was during the season.
Yeah,
but, I'm 2 hours faster at a marathon than
Matt
Turner is. Yeah.
So Matt was he was training a little bit, mostly on the treadmill, and then he was texting our guys group chat as he was running the marathon, and he's like, "Man, the last 6 miles is so much harder than I ever thought."
Oh gosh, I agree. I hit mile 17 because it was here, not obviously New York, but in New York in the fall. It's like I was at like I would say is mile 17 is sort of when I broke. It was like good, and then it just was like walk, run, walk,
and you still got him by 2 hours.
Yeah, John Wayne Cullen says he loves you too.
Oh,
so
I'm glad I said nice things about him since he's listening.
But yeah, so and then I still got him by. I was gonna text him. I was like, hey. Why are you so slow? You're a world-class athlete. Man. But then I was like, hey man, since you got so much, but then last week I was like, since you got so much time on your hands, you gotta work on this marathon time. And then he's like, okay, but then we should run New York together. I was like,
there you go.
I was like, maybe.
He was trying to get me to do it with him last year, but I don't know. Maybe another time.
A marathon's a lot. I would say I felt worse after the marathon than I've ever felt playing rugby.
Really?
Like straight up.
Yeah.
So, maybe we do this another time when we see you play again.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
We're gonna peer pressure Peter Tiberio into coming back for 2021. So, apparently, it's like retired 8 times, comes back every time. He's like a golden retriever.
Yeah, seriously, you can't stay away.
Yeah. So, well, everyone, if you like the show, please like the page, and even subscribe on our iTunes feed, and we'll try to get more of these out here. And thank you very much, the legend Peter Tiberio.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.